It has taken a journey across the stars to reach this stadium, but the Martian Dome is proud to present Quack's Marble Clash Season 3. Hello everyone, I am the titular Quack, and I am excited to present the very first event of this season, Balancing. Of course, now you can see as the camera pans through, there is the beam that we're so used to seeing. Of course, this event needs no introduction. It was in both of the previous QMC seasons, and the format has not changed. You just try to get all 4 of your marbles down as far as possible, and it's cumulative based on each of them. And here is the run order. Our host, the Flying Saucers, will be up first, meanwhile the Avocados is starting in the back. But before that, we have the demo run from the Event Horizons, following in the footsteps of the Malamex from last season. And it looks like they have a couple dropping out to the far side. One of them came just shy of the finisher end, but it looks like they will get one down to the end, and I think that was a pretty great run all around from the Event Horizons. Of course, this is the first time we've seen them demonstrate any event here, but a 275 is a pretty great first event, considering I think it was a 289 that won this event last time. But now we begin with the Flying Saucers, our hosts. We'll see how they do here in their very first event in their home stadium, and they're off. It looks like they have a couple leaning to the far side. 3 of them do, but one of them gets down to the end, and I think that'll be a pretty great score all around. The Flying Saucers looking very consistent here, and despite not only able to get one finisher, I think that'll still be enough to contend here, and a 234 is still enough to push them past 200, which is usually around the midpoint of the results, and pretty solid all around from our hosts, especially considering they had a pretty poor result in this event last season, and starting off on a much stronger foot here. Their fans are definitely noticing that. They're celebrating this, seeing their home team. As now we move on to the Red Rockets, their space rivals, the reigning champions, and we'll see how they do here, and they're off. It looks like they have a couple dropping to the far side. One of them gets down to the 80, I believe. I think that was Fuselage, who's been one of their best marbles over the last season or so, but still not the greatest run all around, especially from the team that won this event back in Season 1. Really not able to pull in the work here, but a 186 is still enough for, well, still enough for P2 out of 2, but not enough to even pass 200, which is usually, as mentioned, about the benchmark that you want to try to reach to be able to contend for a good result here. The Red Rockets really not able to do what we were expecting of them. As now we move on to the City Lights here, the reigning runners-up, another one of the auto-qualified teams from the podium last season, and they're off. It looks like they have another one. This is another run where a lot of them are leading that far side. They did get one down close to the end. I don't think they had a finisher, though, but consistency might still be able to be enough to push this over the Red Rockets run, especially considering they had basically everyone get past the 30, it looks like, and a 221 will still be enough for P2, as I thought, but still not anywhere near the Flying Saucers mark so far. But not too shabby, especially from a team that just barely missed the championship last season. Hopefully that loss not affecting them too hard. It looks like they're doing decently here. As now we move on to the Ivy League, the last of the auto-qualified teams who got overall bronze last season. And they've had a bit of a roster shake-up in terms of who goes in team events, but 3 of them will drop off immediately. Bettina gets down to the end, and that's the Season 2 MVM, and they're showing why they got promoted to the main roster here. The Ivy League haven't been the strongest in balancing before the last couple seasons, but looking pretty decent here with that one marble game down to the end. And a 183, ooh, but it's still only P4. Those 3 marbles I didn't notice fell off. The 35 and earlier, not great at all, but still at least enough to get past 180 at the very minimum, which still is not enough to beat anyone so far, but we'll see. As now we head into Team Pixie's run. This is the first of the teams that qualified the old-fashioned way to get into the main league this season, but it looks like they're staying very true to the center here. They did not get a finisher, but everyone gets past the 60, and that was a great run from Team Pixie. This team medaled in this event last season, and they're showing that skill once again here, getting everyone past the 60. They didn't have a single finisher, but they were still able to get a 285. That would have been enough for a medal once again last season, so they're doing a great job here. Everyone came past the 60s, really going to be crucial to beat a lot of other teams, and consistency really on their side here. As now we move on to the Pollen Puffs run, of course getting overall last place last season, trying to improve upon that. They've already done a great job in the qualifiers to get here. We'll see if they can repeat that. Oh, it looks like they've already dropped a lot off, though, and one of them, I don't think I got to the end there. That was Nectar, who dropped off around the 90, I think, but still consistency not at all on the Pollen Puffs side. It looks like they had that one that was pretty decent, but a 179, they only got an 87 with that last marble, and that is actually P6 out of 6. A 179 isn't even a bad score per se, but it's still not enough compared to the runs we've seen so far. Really, every team has had an impeccable run so far, or at least pretty solid. As now we move on to the Jelly Jammers. This is their first main league event. They got an overall podium in the qualifiers in their group, and they're trying to repeat that here. It looks like they've got a couple dropping out. One of them almost got to the end, but it looks like, oh, they dislodged a fan marble. Hopefully they can get back to their seats safely. But either way, the Jelly Jammers, not the consistency they were hoping for, but still decent enough. They weren't able to quite get anyone to the end, but those couple marbles making it past the 60 will still be enough for 233, which actually is enough for P3 out of the 7 runs so far. Not too shabby. I think that's just barely behind the Flying Saucers run so far, but of course, with so many runs left, it's hard to say if that'll be enough to stay on the provisional podium. Let's now move on to the Stone Golems, one of the teams with perfect attendance, and they're trying to get off on the right foot here after hosting last season, and it looks like they've dropped one off, but they still have 2 going. One of them gets down to the end. It looks like Android made it, meanwhile Construct came just shy of it, just below the 90, but still a very solid run for the Stone Golems. I suppose solid would describe them in a lot of ways, but the team in green getting it done here, a 248 will be enough for P2 out of the run so far, and we're already halfway done, so we'll have to see if that sticks in the overall podium or not. But still, a great run overall from the Stone Golems, which is what we've come to expect. They've been a very consistent team over their careers, but Team Pixie still has a pretty solid lead over them with that 285, but despite not getting a single finisher. But Team Pixie trying to get their second medal in a balancing in a row, with all the Stone Golems and Flying Saucers for now on the provisional podium. Now move on to the Azure Diamonds with another team that's never made it to the main league before. This is their first time doing a main league event, and they have 2 drop off pretty quick. One of them gets around the 80, but that's about all they have to show for it, and that one going to hang out with the Event Horizons, as a couple of marbles have done before them. But the Azure Diamonds really not able to capitalize on this the way they're hoping. It looks like they dropped off around the 30 even. Actually, this might be a weaker run than I thought, and a 192 that will still be enough to put them 6th out of the 9. That does still beat a couple of other teams, but not the greatest from the Azure Diamonds, especially considering the promise they showed in the qualifiers. But of course, they still have 15 more events to prove themselves. As now we move on to the Chili Peppers. This is the only team this season that's returning to the main league. After being in Season 1, they didn't make it to Season 2, but now they're back, and it looks like they're dropping off to the near side this time. One of them gets, maybe to the 60, but not the greatest for the Chili Peppers. They looked pretty decent earlier on, but it looks like they shook it up a little bit too far down to the beam, just leaning a bit too hard to each side. And a 193 will actually just reset P6 from the Azure Diamonds, but not the greatest from the Chili Peppers, especially considering they're another team that was pretty great looking in the qualifiers. But of course, as we go, we get into the teams that were weaker and weaker in the qualifiers. So we'll see as now we head into the Stingrays. Of course, this team has perfect attendance. They've been very solid, top 6 in both QMCs so far. And it looks like they're doing pretty decent here. They one get down to the 80, 2 of them get down to the end. And that was a great run from the Stingrays. This is going to be a challenger here, especially considering we haven't seen anyone get multiple finishers yet, I don't believe. And that one getting down to the 80, the other one was around the 70, and a 331 will be a huge point total. That's better than anyone we saw in the main league last season. The last time we saw a 300-plus point total was, I think, the Season 1 B League with the flashbangs, but with two finishers and everyone getting past the 60. That was a great run from the Stingrays. But now we go on to the Loaves of Bread, who won this event last season. Of course, we've seen how consistent the runs are so far. And it looks like, they're not going to be able to repeat their success from last time, though. They fell off everyone before the 30, it looks like, maybe before the 40, but not a great run at all for the Loaves of Bread. A 110 is by far the worst run we've seen today. Unfortunate for the team that won this event last season. Then they were pretty solid in the qualifiers, but just not able to capitalize here. The Loaves of Bread have been inconsistent over the course of their careers so far, and unfortunately it looks like that's only going to continue. But now we move on to the Snapping Turtles, the 3rd team in a row with perfect attendance. We'll see how they do in this event, if they can challenge their rivals, the Stingrays. And they're off. They're leaning a bit to the near side. One of them falls off. 3 of them get down around the 80, though, and that was a very consistent run. I don't know if that'll be enough to challenge the Stingrays without a single finisher, but consistency is sort of like the Team Pixie run. That might still be enough to put them into a higher-up spot. And yes, it will. A 253 will still be enough for P3. That's not anywhere near the Team Pixie score, but still similar in essence, considering they didn't get a single finisher, and they had 3 get down past the 60. That was a pretty solid run all around for the Snapping Turtles. But of course, now we go on to the 4K Pixels, the only true rookies this season. They've never competed in anything before. We'll see how they do here. And they're off. It looks like they have 1 marble leaning a bit to the near side, but they will get down to the end. And the other 3 also look pretty consistent. The 4K Pixels might be doing a great job here, depending on how the scores shake out. That we've seen so many consistent runs, though. It's really all going to come down to those 2. And they actually got past 70 there, meaning a 291 will be enough for P2 that replaces the Snapping Turtles, who just got onto the provisional podium. They got knocked right off of it. Meanwhile, Team Pixie now just holding on to 3rd place. But the 4K Pixels off to a great start in the main league. But now we go on to the King Crabs, one of the best teams in QMC, the Season 1 champions, and coming off of their Marble Invites season. We'll see how they do here. It looks like they have 3 still going. 1 of them, 2 of them, 3 of them get down to the end. And the King Crabs doing a great job here. This might be another podium challenger. We haven't seen a team get 3 finishers in ages in this event, but the King Crabs doing an excellent job here to 302, another 300-plus run, and that will put them into P2. Unfortunately, the Team Pixie will not be able to take a medal here despite getting a great run, with the King Crabs showing why they won the championship. They got silver in this event back in Season 1, and it looks like they're trying to do it once more. The fans absolutely thrilled to see it once again. As now we move on to the Avocados, a final run of the day. If anyone can challenge the Stingrays, it's going to have to be them. They just barely made the main league this season, and they're showing why. They have 3 fall off very quickly. 1 gets down to the end, but the Avocados, unfortunately, not able to put up a run quite like the last couple we saw, and it looks like they were all out of sorts. They had 1 fall off around the 15. That was really inconsistent all around from this team, and at 159 will unfortunately be 15th place for the Avocados in their first main league event. Disastrous for them, but we'll have to see. With so many more events to go, there's still time for them to redeem themselves, but we shall see. But of course, that means the Stingrays will be holding on for the first gold medal of the season. The King Crabs getting silver in the first event. I wonder where I've seen that before. And the 4K Pixels will round out the first podium. That is their first time not only in a main league event, but getting a medal in a main league event. Very impressive for them. Meanwhile, Team Pixie in an unfortunately familiar 4th place. But here is the podium. The Stingrays standing on top, unlike their rivals who are usually above them, but the King Crabs and Stingrays rivalry continues on as we look at the standings. Of course, it just reflects the results of the first event. Meanwhile, teams like the Red Rockets are reigning champs down in 12th, Ivy League in 13th, not the starts we were expecting. Of course, the Stingrays, King Crabs, and 4K Pixels in every season we've seen so far, the championship team has always gotten a medal in the first event, so we'll see if that holds true once again with those 3 as we head into the next event, which will be archery. So stay tuned, and thank you for watching.